Well, hello, Blood Love Global Community. My name is Hannah Bora Baby, and whew, I felt inspired today to come on and create a little video in response to the curiosity and questions that have arisen around a recent post of mine that went viral. So, for those of you who haven't been tuning in, just to offer you a little bit of context, on my last blood cycle, my last menstruation, I felt moved to share this channeled writing that came through about the power of free bleeding and the spiritual practice of returning my menstrual blood to the earth. And I included with the poem an image of myself that I had taken during the moon cycle before. It happened to be a new moon eclipse that I had sent to a lover at the time. And the image included um, a trail of blood down the center of my forehead and my blood covered fingers up against my lips. So I felt inspired to put this out during my last moon cycle. And unbeknownst to me, it was picked up off my page and circulated throughout the internet, and it went viral. So when I first realized the impact that post, that I'd really only intended for an audience of people who already followed me, and I've made blood posts before, so I never anticipated that it was going to be such a big deal. But the response that I got was surprising. It was something that I never could have expected. And I would say that in many ways, the response that I received fit into three categories. The first category is people who really understand the depth of blood love, body love, the blood mysteries, and magic, and who were really inspired and really excited about the post that I put out there and felt a deep resonance with it. The other school of thought that came back was people who were absolutely disgusted by it. And I received more private messages and more shares from people who really detested the sight of my blood and were disgusted by what I had written. So much so that many of them resorted to making threats and questioning my sanity, and accusing me of, any number of things, not being safe to have around children, and deserving to be locked away. I got some really, really crazy pushback from people who just didn't understand and couldn't fathom how a woman could have that kind of an intimate relationship with her blood. So that was crazy to receive and witness. And then the third school of thought that started to trickle in, much to my surprise, was people who were contacting me saying that at first they'd been really disgusted and expected, to feel a lot of hatred and intense emotion towards me. But then when they went onto my page and started looking at who I am as a person and exploring a little bit deeper the work that I've been doing around the blood mysteries, they actually found themselves intrigued, and they found a resonance, and followed the crumbs to my Global Sisterhood page, and now are a part of the community. And so this third school of people are really the ones that I want to speak to in this particular video, because there's been a lot of curiosity communicated about why blood is such a thing for me and for my community. Why blood love feels like it's such an important piece of the feminine reclamation and global environmental movement. And what about blood is really special and is really worth honoring in this way that so many of us have been conditioned and taught is nasty or gross or just way outside of the sphere of how people are used to relating to their bodies and their blood. So I wanted to create this little video about why blood and why now, so that we could start to dive into these mysteries together. And if you're really curious about this stuff and you are in a female body, then I encourage you to come and join our Blood Mysteries Global Sisterhood page. There's a lot of phenomenal information that is getting shared there. And also please like my Blood Mysteries Virtual Voyage business page, where I post information about the online seminar series that I've produced as a collaboration with 8 other practitioners in the field of women's health and wellness. And divine feminine womb reclamation. So if you're curious about hearing more and learning more and joining in with the community of people who are really diving into these mysteries in a heart-centered and curious way, then I invite you to follow me and join those networks and become a part of this community yourself. But to start off, I want to offer just a little bit of a sense of understanding about how I personally have come to this journey. And, I think that storytelling is such an important part of the Blood Mysteries because storytelling is how, before recorded history, wisdom and knowledge was passed along. And for those who are familiar with the Red Tent movement, which was based off of the book, The Red Tent, there is this phenomenal tradition that is experiencing this resurgence right now of women coming together during their moon time to celebrate the portal keepers that they are and share the wisdom that is channeling through during this really important time. And so sitting around a fire and sharing story, sharing medicine, song, and magic is a huge part of what makes this path so powerful and so unique. And so I want to share a little bit of my story about how I discovered the Blood Mysteries. And in so many ways, it is one of those experiences of, just following the breadcrumbs one step at a time. And intuition in a lot of ways has been my teacher in this, because like so many of us, the family that I grew up in, even though we were fairly liberal and fairly open, there was still this sense of shame around our blood time and of wanting to kind of keep it hidden away and keep it quiet. And so I didn't grow up knowing about the sacredness of my blood. And in fact, I experienced really painful cycles that, I would have to take painkillers almost as soon as I felt my menstrual cramps coming on, just to be able to get through, to continue to be able to go to class in school or to show up for work. And it was really a horrible, horrible time that made me hate my body and hate being a woman, and really wish that I didn't have to deal with this inconvenience every month. And so that's really how I started out my journey. It was this tremendous feeling of dislike and discomfort within my body around my menstruation, and this discomfort seemed to be reflected back and shared by the people in my family and the people in my wider community as well. And it wasn't really until I moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and started to immerse myself in a community of people who live in really deep harmony with nature and herbal medicine, and who are learning how to live, sustainably in order to try and reverse the degenerative practices and regenerate nature and the natural world so that we can be preserving phenomenal gifts that the natural world has to bring to us. It wasn't really until becoming a part of this community that I started to meet people who had a very different relationship to their blood. And I started to I started to connect with people who understood that the feminine cycle truly deeply aligns with the lunar cycle. An average woman has a 28-day menstrual cycle, and the moon revolves on a 28-day cycle. So there is a phenomenal link that the female body has to the natural cycles. And when women learn how to be in connection with their own innate rhythm in this way that is recognizing our cycles as a part of the larger natural rhythms and start to honor our bodies during this time, then there is this return to this natural way of being in cyclical and harmonious relationship with the earth and with the moon and with the larger collective that is very different than the society and the culture that we live in now, which keeps us on this 9 to 5 wage slavery grind to be feeding the system and feeding these upper echelons of society that are reaping the benefit of our time, energy, and attention. So the power of the feminine cycle and the connection to blood is that it detaches us from this artificial matrix and reconnects us with our bodies in a phenomenally empowering and powerful way. So what I started to do as I entered onto this journey is I started tracking my cycle and noticing how my menstrual cycle lined up with the full moon or the new moon, or how it moved in between. And there are these powerful portals where I was either bleeding with the full moon or with the new moon. And I started to realize that if I really paid attention to the celestial cycles and how they align with my menstrual cycle, then I was able to actually utilize my downtime, my inward time, the very psychic and aligned rest time of my cycle to deepen into a deeper ritual that helped me ground into what it was that my body was actually releasing. And so as I started to play with tracking my cycle and started to work with the awareness that our menstrual blood is in so many ways the coming together of all of these bits and pieces of ourselves and lining our creative center, our womb center, which is the portal. It's the portal of life, right? So when I started to consider the fact that blood is made of water, and we know that water can be shaped and transformed by energy, that all of the nutrients that we're gathering in my womb, the stem cells, the minerals and the vitamins that my body was crafting to actually nurture life, because that's what menstrual blood is. It's the lining of the uterus in which the egg, when fertilized, can implant so that this embryo has all of the nutrients that are needed to actually grow it into life, grow it into a baby. And so when we bleed, it's our body releasing all of the nourishment, all of the nutrients, and all of the energy that has been concentrated within the womb space and pouring that out of our body, releasing it from our bodies. And I started to learn that there are ancient cultures, indigenous cultures, that actually saw this time for a woman and for the community at large as being a really, really powerful and really potent time that deserved honoring and space and attention. And so when I started to practice this awareness in my own life, in my own experience, tapping into my own rhythms, what I realized is that my body really really needed to rest during this time, and that when I gave myself that rest, the messages and the magic and the power, the creation that portaled through was really phenomenal. And I started to come to that understanding around the nutrients held within that blood. And I started to just not feel right about allowing all of that energy, this energy that is the deepest part of myself, to just flush right down the drain. And I started to learn about these ancient practices that were being revived around the power of free bleeding, or the power of collecting our blood via a moon cup, or by soaking, pads or whatever it is that we use to catch our blood, so that we can be returning our blood to the earth. And fairly early on in my blood journey, as I was just following my own internal inspiration and the wisdom that was coming through, I remember really clearly sitting out under a full moon and seeing the constellation Orion, who's always looked over me for as long as I can remember. Orion has been there and has been helped to guide me. And I just learned about the star Sirius, and that this is, potentially a star that held some soul connection for me. And so I was following the guidance to locate the star Sirius, and I was keying in and just meditating, imagining the light from the star coming in through my third eye and coming in through my crown. And I heard this voice inside of me say, when women remember to return their blood to the earth in a sacred way, then men will remember how to cry and will no longer need to shed blood through war. And so what that landed home for me was the awareness that when we release our blood into the earth, whether it's by fighting in war or giving our menstrual blood to the earth or bleeding on the ground, it is the highest concentration of our life force energy that is being given in communication to the earth, so that she knows where humanity is at in that time and what it is that she needs to return to us as nourishment for our most thriving. So blood offerings have been this phenomenal way of directly communicating with the earth and establishing this direct link, so that she knows how to grow and how to nourish us so that we can thrive. And it's because women have been separated from the power of their menstrual cycles and their blood cycles, and that this practice has been demonized and stamped out in such a way, I believe, that humanity has also become disconnected from our capacity to process all of the emotions that come up within us as a result of just being human. And we've lost the capacity to just be really fully present with the discomfort and the power of our emotions, which for anyone who's ever been around a woman who's bleeding, how emotional we get during this time. And so the process of disconnecting us from our cycles has been disconnecting us from our bodies and shaming the wealth of emotion that comes through during this time, and the wisdom, the ability to release and process and clarify our bodies, to clarify our spirits. This has really been co-opted, and it's been demonized, and it has created this sense of separation from ourselves, our bodies, our spirits, our emotions, and the earth. And so what this prophecy means to me is that when women remember to start to honor our cycles and honor the preciousness of our blood and our feminine power and all of the wealth, the depth of emotion and wisdom that comes to that, then we're going to be holding this standard that's going to remind men who have been acculturated not to feel emotion and not to show emotion, and so as a result have to act emotion and intensity out in other ways, oftentimes warfare being one of them, that they'll remember how to relate to the feminine principle more within themselves, and will no longer have to fight as a way to release and move these energies. There will be these better rituals and practices and awarenesses at play as a culture that will allow men, women, and all beings alike to be able to release and shed the layers of our internal world, really. body, and to connect with one another and connect with the earth in a more dialed in and sacred way. And when we're more connected and we're able to communicate with ourselves and process the emotions that are alive inside of us, then there's not going to be this need to act out in this way. So that's really the foundation of my own spiritual practice, and one of the reasons why collecting blood and offering it to the earth in a really conscious and sacred way is one of the most empowering things that I have ever done for myself, and it's something that I feel phenomenally passionate about sharing with the world. And the incredible thing is that the more I speak up about this incredibly vulnerable practice, the more people show up in my world who resonate and who have their own wisdom and magic to share, their own intuitions or their own journeys and stories as a part of this practice, as a part of this path. And so this community, this global community, is growing in so many ways, and it is so inspiring and so exciting. And so like I said earlier, if you want to connect with me, if you want to learn more about this and tap in with a community that is really working to reclaim the power of the feminine portal and the sacredness of blood, then reach out to me, let me know, ask me your questions, and I look forward to embarking on this journey together. And to all of the haters out there, I just want to let you know that as much as you all have been spreading vitriol and sharing my posts with vomit emojis, you guys are spreading this message further and wider than I could ever have imagined doing so on my own. And so whether you know it or not, you are helping this movement move, and you are helping to bring people who might not know that this is even a thing, but might be able to benefit from it in a really deep way. You are sending them my way. So thank you. I honor you. As always, the shadow has the most creative way of benefiting and supporting the light. And so, from my heart to your hearts, from my womb to your wombs, I sincerely hope that you would like to join me on this journey. Blessings, beloved.